Take it away, Dakota.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for having me at your monthly meeting. And I really look forward to kind of just over the next few minutes, like expressing our story and getting to know you all a little bit better through some question and answer stuff. So we can go to one more slide. All right, so Leaders Igniting Transformation. We're a Wisconsin-based youth organizing group, primarily working on value-based issue and electoral organizing. So that means for us, we're not just focusing on a particular issue or a particular election, but we are combining both in order to make our communities thriving. We also work on direct action, advocacy for public policy, as well as leadership development programs to help really build the next generation of Wisconsin leaders. For us, what that means is we often are working very, very, very hard in a state that for the last 10 years has been controlled by a supermajority of Republicans and really chipped away at progressive infrastructure, including unions, public schools, public universities, workers' rights, and so much more. And now we are trying to rebuild the progressive infrastructure in Wisconsin, as well as hopefully, I'll talk about this a little bit more, build a progressive legislative base to kind of return Wisconsin to the beacon of hope for progressivism in the country. We can go to the next slide. So how we think about our work is in three different buckets. Advocacy, that's primarily on our college and high school chapters. There, our high school chapters works on the school to prison pipeline. So far, they've been able to divest over $1 million from the school to prison pipeline in Milwaukee public schools. What that means is they have blocked contracts with police as well as excessive TSA style metal detectors and said, you know what, we don't need this. What we need is we need to have an additional counselor in this school. We need to have an additional counselor in that school. And we need to have more therapists and other professionals who are trained in trauma-informed care and mental health practitioners inside of our schools, not police. Leadership development, that primarily comes through a variety of our programs, but the beacon and the shining star of all of our programs is what we call Black Hogwarts. Traditionally, Black Hogwarts is a 6-week summer program in which we graduate about 25 to 30 young people in about 100 hours of advanced community organizing training. This year, being remote, obviously we cannot do that. So what we've done is we've had each of our organizing teams develop a unique curriculum that they are now delivering digitally. So we have a civic organizing team who is doing 5 trainings around that. We have a college team doing 6 trainings, a high school team that's showing how you actually lobby and organize around budgets and local policy fights right now with our school board. And then our cultural organizing team will be putting together trainings catered towards creatives and artists throughout the state of Wisconsin, as well as anyone who tunes in around the country. And then lastly, our civic engagement and organizing. That's like the heart and soul of what we do. Every day we organize, and then we turn that into civic engagement. We talk to people about voting. We go out, we register voters. We get people to pledge to vote. We run digital ads. We do so much in order to turn out the vote that we basically curate throughout the whole entire year by investing in communities, building these deep relationships. And so we can go to the next slide as well now too. And I think this will be a slide of a video that kind of talks about a little bit of our work. So this can be played and hope everyone enjoys.
Mm-hmm.
Racism shows itself in Milwaukee by us being one of the most segregated cities.
I wouldn't want to raise a Black kid here.
If you are Black and brown in this city, it is one of the worst places in America for you.
Growing up in Milwaukee, there's a lot of over-policing.
And I've experienced that with like being pulled over, being questioned by the police for like literally just like existing in places that I don't think I should be.
Basically marked as criminals.
Leaders Igniting Transformation is a sort of new youth of color organization. Our slogan is the future is young, Black, brown, and lit.
We protest, we canvass, try to get people out to vote so we can help the community more. Going into high school, being able to communicate the importance of voting.
The school to prison pipeline, it is the practice of putting more into policing and criminalizing young people than it is nurturing them.
All the police officers and the metal scanners, we're not in prison, but the school is basically making it like a prison.
If you're in an environment where you really feel like you're in prison, your mindset is going to be, I'm going to prison.
A place that was supposed to be safe is not safe at all.
May 31st of 2018, we blocked legislation that would have mandated Milwaukee Public Schools teachers and administrators to call police for suspected criminal activity on students. For us was just asinine that somebody would put on paper, you know, if you suspect students of criminal activity without any proof, your first step is to call the police. To be able to win this campaign was really just proof that, like, what we say we can do, we can actually do. This year, our work is centered around removing police from our schools.
They proposed this budget where there is a huge amount of money being spent on school safety and security guards and metal detectors.
Today at the Milwaukee Public School Board meeting, we plan to make our presence heard.
The first communication is action on a request to approve a technical amendment to the April certificated appointments list. The administration recommends that the board approve the technical amendment on the April. Mr. Chair, would you like to take a recess at this time?
Inspired please to not do so. You decided to prioritize policing and security in our budget. This in turn has led to higher suspension rates and more students having police contact.
The belief that young people of color need to be policed and watched instead of nurtured is a result of internalized racism.
Fund our future, not our failure.
Like this.
600,000 to police and security.
The way we transform the protest and activism energy into voting, it's going to be organizations like LIT.
We actually have a voice right here, right now. Like, us protesting and canvassing is a good way to communicate with people.
When I think about the landscape of the 2020 election and where Wisconsin falls into that and where LIT falls into that as a group that is mobilizing young voters of color that will literally decide the 2020 election and how much power young people of color have in this moment, in this city, in this country, is a beautiful thing.
Thank you for showing that. And so that kind of helped capture a little bit around like our high school team, as well as talking about how we're able to be successful in our organizing, win campaigns, and show that our model can win by trusting young people to lead. And what that means for us moving forward is hopefully the future will be young, Black, brown, and lit. So I'm going to talk a little bit about like our different variety of organizing programs that we do. So our campus organizing is one of the most exciting pieces of our work right now. Last year, we only worked in the city of Milwaukee. Now we are working across 9 different college campuses throughout Wisconsin. So we've expanded and really are become like a statewide organization through our college program. So we're now working in areas like Green Bay, Oshkosh, Stevens Point, Eau Claire, La Crosse, Menominee. And what that means for us is not only are we expanding our base of young people, but it's really setting us up to lay the groundwork to win back local House races and Senate races, as well as congressional races over the long term. We know that Wisconsin has been gerrymandered for so long that it's going to be impossible to win these seats back this year. But we know if we start building now, and we put up a great fight for the census, we'll get some victories eventually. And that means huge things for Wisconsin in this place that's been so gerrymandered. Additionally, on college campuses, we plan on targeting young voters now through digital means to do voter registration as well as pledge to vote cards. And if we're able to go back safely in person this fall, we'll be doing safe mass scale events to help register voters. But all that is depending on the pandemic and whether or not we feel like we can keep people safe while doing this important work. As well as we're working on developing trainings to help elect the new future leaders. So not only just about building the base out there to get victories, but we know movement leaders have to move into the electoral world. And so what we are looking to do is put on trainings and help young candidates run for office, and even developing a PAC to help make sure that we could do that work through all the sorts of legal ways as well too. We can go to the next slide. So as you just saw, our high school team is really truly helping ignite the future by doing great local advocacy work around like the school board meetings, showing that they're able to disrupt, get victories out of that as well too. They also plan on, plan on doing more voter registration inside of schools. The pandemic shut us down once again on that one. Also, this is where the key leadership pipeline begins. We can't just reach out to young folks once they become 18 and voting on college campuses, but we have to think about what does it mean to invest into high school freshmen who are coming into school and looking to be more engaged. And really for the first time, I think, they're open to politics and they're becoming more politically engaged at a younger age. And so how do we begin to funnel that? And how do we begin to develop a pipeline that does not start at 18 to create lifelong voters, but to get the 13, 14, 15-year-olds involved in civic engagement through advocacy, and what that creates for long-term power if they see that at 15, they can sway decision makers for policy. They're going to be more excited to go out and vote once they turn 18. We can go to our next slide. Our cultural organizing is our newest organizing department. The premise of this is to work with often ignored young black and brown artists and creatives throughout the state of Wisconsin. And so we know that these tend to be folks who are not reached by traditional digital and in-person outreach methods. So, you're not often going to reach some young people of color through just phone banks and texting and digital ads. What you're going to have to actually do is you have to organize culture. And what that means is you're going to have to go out and make content, work with local artists, local creatives, and begin to organize them and have them use their social influence base to begin to infuse that political education into whatever medium of art they have. And so organizing with creators and influencers to really help expand the electoral base, but also the advocacy base of our organizations. We know that almost every presidential year you're going to get, in the last few years, we've seen Taylor Swift do stuff. We've seen Katy Perry, we've seen Beyonce, Jay-Z, we've seen all these big local national artists. That is great and fine, but oftentimes, not everyone is a fan of these folks, right? Sometimes you have folks who are really into local artists more so than mainstream artists. And that's how we're going to be able to win in Wisconsin and make up these 22,000 votes, is by organizing all these aspects, and especially getting these young influencers and creatives who have the tens of thousands of followers on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, to talk about the election and the issues at hand here. We can go to the next slide, which I believe is another video that kind of highlights some of what we've done with our cultural organizing in terms of infusing that into a census issue, right? Census is not the most sexy issue. It's often pretty boring. And what you'll see here is we created a census video working with local artists, and we produced this video in Spanish because we, half of our base is Latinx population, as well as Spanish-speaking influences. So we want to make sure that we combine those efforts as well too. So we could play this video and hope you all enjoy this one as well too.
Eileen, unmute yourself.
Sí, y alza la mano si quieres juntar. Usan los datos para determinar cuántas escuelas y clínicas, fondos federales para la comunidad. No somos invisibles, sabemos que quieren intimidar. No importa tu estatus inmigratoria, no lo sabrán ni preguntarán. Ni la media ni la policía están a salvo tú y tu familia. Así que vamos a ir por todos lados para registrarnos, para ser contados. Porque para resistir tenemos que existir. Yeah, para resistir tenemos que existir. Cuéntanos, aquí somos pueblo, cuéntanos, no tengan miedo, cuéntanos, participa en el centro, vámonos. Yeah, cuéntanos, aquí somos pueblo, cuéntanos, no tengan miedo, cuéntanos, participa en el centro, vámonos. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And the premise of that video is to really highlight, one, the importance of building community not being invisible, but also there's some messaging in there as well too, talking about how the census protects your information and does not go to other government agencies that may be trying to create harm to our Latinx populations as well too. Our electoral organizing is right now, obviously, you know, the Wisconsin pandemic primary just happened. And for that, you know, it was a really tough election for, I think, all of us on staff as well as in our community. We, you know, in that election, we were able to send over 360,000 text messages, over 25,000 phone calls. We ran electoral digital ads that reached almost 900,000 people, being seen almost 2.3 million times. We also were able to get about 20,000 people to request an absentee ballot through our digital efforts as well too. And all that was from our wonderful Canvas team going out and, you know, doing those texts, doing those phone calls, helping us create digital ads, and really, I think, you know, propelling Wisconsin to a victory, and at least an electoral victory on April 7th. So I think, you know, as this continues, that's going to be one of the biggest questions, and I look forward to some Q&A around our electoral organizing. And we could do the last slide, which kind of is infused with our electoral organizing, which is now our digital organizing, and how we're doing this all through digital aspects now. And so I think, first of all, we know where to find us. We know which platforms in which to reach young people at. And that does not often look like the traditional just go being on Facebook. That means we've created a TikTok channel, and we're doing TikTok challenges, and we're engaging young people with, you know, unique dances and working with creatives to help read those dances out. You know, identifying new tools, whether it's like through text, through talk, different text programs, call programs, different ways in which to broadcast live streams to help make all that more creative. And then most importantly, we're making sure that all of our content is by young people for young people, meaning that they need to be at the heart and soul of the creative process, and not allowing other people to create their messages, other people to create what's going to influence them. And so that's kind of what I have. And I know we have a Q&A, and I think I've seen some questions pop up in the chat box. So I'm not sure what the process is here in terms of, you know, try to answer these current ones, or how do you want to handle this?
Well, we have some questions too, and then yeah, we can definitely tackle any of the questions in the chat box. That's great. Dakota, thank you so much. We just love hearing about all your efforts across the country, and very excited to have you here. My name is Eileen, by the way. I'm one of the leaders of MBCAN, this mother organization of Airlift. Sorry, I lost my check. So, you know, your organization is young people motivating other young people. That's what I get from you. But so how are you going to motivate these young people to get out for Joe Biden? I mean, you're not going out for Joe Biden, but I mean, that's what the, you know, it's, you know, how is that going to work for you guys?
Yeah, you know, great question. And there's multiple pronged strategies there. So one, the first step is accountability with Joe Biden, and ensuring that Joe Biden is talking to young people and moving on issues in which young people care about. You know, that looks like Joe Biden willing to swallow some hard pills on his current policy platforms and moving a little further left into what young people want to see him around student debt relief or cancellation, making, the pathway to college free for public universities, technical colleges, providing healthcare, and having a really, really solid plan on what he will do different on immigration to ensure that young children are not locked up on the border. So that's step one, is like the accountability and working in a key state like Wisconsin in order to get his campaign to be more vocal about how they plan on infusing a progressive, young progressive voices into their campaign. Step two around this is really making sure that folks understand how awful Trump has been. And though Joe Biden is not the, no one, I don't think, woke up and will mold a candidate that looks like Joe Biden, right? Like all of us, have our preferences on candidates, and Joe Biden, I think falls short on some aspects for young people. And so making sure that there's a very clear comparison between what Trump has done versus what Joe Biden says he will do, and making that case for young people on what it means for them to be affected. I think, everything that's coming out during this coronavirus pandemic in terms of how K through 12 and public universities have been left out of almost any stimulus package right now makes a very clear case that the Trump administration is not for us. Betsy DeVos has made a very clear case that she is not for young people trying to get education. She has also made it very clear that undocumented dreamers are not welcome in higher education underneath her administration. And so I think all these points, all these small points are points in which we can help leverage and help pry the youth vote up above that. And then finally, we have to put that call out there that I think, once again, when we talk about our strategy, it's not just going to be electing the current leaders, but really calling young people to step up and think about what their path to power is, and how lit can be an influencer as well as strategic partner in them running for office this fall, because that's going to be what's the most exciting, is the down ballot races in which we can help propel Joe Biden to a victory in Wisconsin, and really make sure that young people are not just voting, but running. And so that's how I'd answer that question right there for you.
That's wonderful. That's very comprehensive. I'd like to go to our chat, and because Maureen Parton has a really good question there. It's the second question: what kind of data are you gathering to show how you're successfully translating organizing into not just registering, but actually showing up and voting?
That is a great question. And so when I think about what we did in 2018, the most recent election in which we have like comprehensive full data from, let me just pull up those stats so that way I can give you the right numbers. So in 2018, we did canvassing, we did pledge to vote on all in the city of Milwaukee. And from that, what we found was so what we do is we just don't knock the door. We do organizing conversations as well as we follow up once we get that data. And so it's a little bit more robust, and it costs a little bit more for us to run our program, because we're not just doing a one knock, here's information on voting, but let's talk about the issues and let's organize together. So in 2018, we found that 83% of the people that we knocked the door on and had a conversation with went out and voted, which was fantastic. 83.25% of people we talked to went out and voted. Absolutely amazing. Our Pledge to Vote program, which was mostly on college campuses, which collected about 12,500 Pledge to Vote cards. Each of them had follow-ups from our organizers as well as college fellows, talking to them about issues, inviting them to lit meetings on college campuses, and trying to build that organizing work into it. That had an 80% vote rate. So 80% of the people who filled out our Pledge to Vote card went out and voted. And so we know it's not going to be the one-off contact methods that get us, lifelong voters or even one-time voters. It's going to be the organizing around issues, around values, and involving them into a community like LIT, a political home like LIT, that is going to help propel us in victory. And I think we're going to continue to see that kind of stuff, because we're not just doing the one-off like, hey, can you go vote? Like, no, let's not just go vote. Let's build a political future in which everyone is valued moving forward. And I think a lot of young people resonate with that. And that's how that's how we're using our data, and kind of showing that we're not just we're moving folks along the process as well too.
So Dakota, hi, thank you so much for that. I'm Celeste, helping to co-host the meeting today, and thank you for being here. And I was thinking how when you were talking about the way you're organizing with so many young people, that you're basically offering the civics lessons that aren't taught in school anymore. So it's terrific.
Yes. Yes, we are.
That. So here we have a question, and I'm very interested in this, as most people are. This is from Frank. He wants to know, to what extent do you know whether the Trump electoral team is infiltrating TikTok the way they infiltrated Facebook in 2016?
Well,
about that.
So, I mean, TikTok is a really interesting platform to be on in the first place, especially around what they've done in terms of censorship around democracy in like China, right? I wouldn't say that Trump has, infiltrated TikTok as much, only because, I do believe TikTok is a more foreign company than, Facebook is, so it may be a little bit harder. I also know that TikTok hasn't worked out their digital ad process as flushed out as a Facebook is. So it's a little bit harder for them to infiltrate it, but that's mostly just because TikTok is not the same beast as a Facebook, where, everyone could read the articles that Facebook essentially embedded employees to teach the Trump team how to run ads, right? Because they were spending so much money, and, similar to YouTube and Google. So I would say not yet, but it's something we should, all be worried about as TikTok builds out a digital ad platform. Everyone's going to go there and, dump in tens of thousands of dollars to get something. So not yet, but something to be worried about.
Yeah, well, we'll watch you, because I think you really understand digital in the space that maybe, we are not quite as skilled as you. So we'll pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. We have time for one more question. And I think a lot of people are interested in the mail-in balloting and voting in Wisconsin. So how does it work, and are you guys getting people to switch to mail-in?
Yeah, so mail-in ballots in Wisconsin, something we're actively working on. So when we're doing our digital voter registration, we're also asking folks if they want to request an absentee ballot. In Wisconsin, there is a no excuse absentee ballot, meaning you can request an absentee ballot for any reason that you want to. You just need to go through a few steps online, present a photo ID, and say where you want your ballot mailed to. So it's a fairly easy process. In the city of Milwaukee, a newly elected alderwoman recently passed legislation that would have applications for those ballots be sent to every registered voter in Wisconsin in case they do not have digital access in this time. We will continuously try to work throughout the state of Wisconsin with local election administrators to push out absentee ballot applications. Unfortunately, with state laws, we can't just automatically send folks ballots. But we can do is make the process as easy as possible, sending them applications as well as posters to send it back. Run fun digital ads for young people to help them think about that. And right now you can go online and request an absentee ballot for the August and November election. And in some places in Wisconsin, we have a special election May 12th, I believe. So you can request that ballot as well too. So it's something we're actively pushing and trying to make sure folks can vote safely.